Welcome! POE 2 just dropped a massive bomb on us with an endgame Druid showcase, going over the passive tree, couple of possible endgame builds, and showing that the Wyvern is not completely terrible. On top, we're getting the third Sorcerer Ascension. But first, let's talk about the Druid. They finally gave us a complete look at every single Ascendancy node so you can make a decision between Shaman or Oracle. Let's start at the top node here. It says the lesser harm, enemy critical hits, and damage against you is unlucky. Therefore, it gets rolled twice and the worst outcome is taken. Then forced outcome, inevitable critical hits. Hits which could potentially be a critical hit, but do not critical hit, will re-roll critical hit chance until they succeed. Hits have 30% less critical damage bonus for each time critical hit chance was re-rolled. The more crit hit you have, the more damage you'll deal, and you will 100% deal a crit hit. So if we have an effect that needs to critical hit, but we don't care about the actual damage, this is going to be crazy. Then we finally know what this node does, and that would be unnamed Hardwort. 1 to maximum number of summoned totems. Totems die 6 seconds after their life is reduced to 0. Finally, a second totem ascendancy next to the Warbringer. Next up, we get a description of Moment of Vulnerability. That one was a bit unclear in the presentation. Send out a Temporal Nova to take advantage of enemies' Moment of Vulnerability. Hitting enemies that are primed for stun, electrocution, or freeze causes a visage of them to appear, lasting as long as the original target would have been affected by the form of immobilization. A portion of the damage dealt to visages is also dealt to the original. And by a portion at level 20, it means 98% of damage dealt to the time-ripped visage is also dealt to the original. Hot damn. My grenade build says thank you. Then our middle node giving us the Harmony Within. Hit damage is taken from mana before life. If your current mana is higher than your current life, less maximum mana, less maximum life. Not bad. We get the Unseen Path with the bonus passive nodes together with Entwined Realities, allowing us from Keystones to put our points without connecting them. Lastly, we get Align the Fate, finally in writing. Align Fate says, while active visages of yourself from alternate timelines will occasionally appear and cast one of your spells from your first valid weapon set. Until the next visage appears, your next cast of the same spell aligns your fate, empowering that spell. This has 9.15 second delay between visages. Could probably use fast forward for this. And then 25% increased visage frequency per spell visages could cast. The more spells you have, the more visages you'll get. Casting the matching spell before the next visage empowers it by 30% bonus damage. I'm still not sure how to feel about this because this definitely wants you to play the piano playstyle. Then over to the Shaman, and nothing very much changed here. We still have our Furious Wellspring giving us the continuous rage generation. Sacred Flow gives us 40 spirit per empty charm slot, also working for totems or minions. We had Wisdom of the Magi, which gave our runes and idols bonus effects. Not too hot, but useful. Druidic Champion down here gave us more spell damage per rage, together then with Furious Wellspring. Our Avatar of Evolution gives us damage reduction over adaptation, and adaptations are being gained by taking elemental damage from hits, and each adaptation grants 10% less damage taken from the adaptation type. However, the real interesting part is the Apocalypse on the side. Apocalypse reads, requires 100 glory to use, then duration of the Apocalypse will be 12 seconds, and triggers one of 3 disasters every 0.75 seconds. The way you gain glory is by hitting enemies with elemental damage. The cool part is that the node before Apocalypse, turning the season, says enemies in your presence have exposure, fire, ice, lightning, whatever, and then gain 10% of damage as extra damage of a random element on every attack. Ergo, we always hit enemies with elemental damage at any given point. I'm a Shaman main, no questions asked. And now to Path of Exile's endgame presentation of potential Druid builds and what the Druid is capable of. Plus Wyvern not sucking. First, you get a Tornado Druid. That's going to create Ignited Ground, Shock Ground, Chilled Ground, and then these tornadoes suck up set elemental ground to go out and will absolutely massive destroy everything. The Werewolf can easily create Chilled Ground with Frost Nexus support. Supported skills create Chilled Ground for 8 seconds when they freeze an enemy. That's just Vob Vob with your normal claws attack, enemy is going to be frozen. Then you can use a curse setup for the Burning Ground and simply the Wake of Destruction boots for Shock Ground. All 3 things easily available for one hell of a build. Now remember me saying the Wisdom of the Magi node wasn't that good on Shaman, gained the benefits of bonded modifiers on runes and idols. Well, I was wrong, because the Idol of Maxarius that says body armor 1 charm slot plus also as a bonded item says storm skills have +1 to limit, allowing you to easily go for these multiple tornadoes without having to use overabundant or having to be a Stormweaver right away for those elemental limits. And then we finally get an answer to our question: how quick is the fire-breathing Wyvern and how much damage does it actually do? Plus, how long can you stay in the sky? The answer is yes, yes, and yes. You can stay plenty up because of quite some amazing buffs to the passive tree. First, we got Eternal Rage. This is a persistent buff skill that says regenerate 5 rage per second. So even just running around pulling together enemies will generate enough rage to actually be able to use the Flame Breath. What will be more important is the passive node called Primal Hunger. 100% more maximum rage, regenerate 1 rage per second per 4 rage spent recently. However, it does say no rage effect, which means we're not getting the bonus damage from rage, but 100% more rage. Together with Furious Wellspring, which gives us +7 maximum rage already, and then the small nodes granting us more maximum rage too. Or you're going to be sitting at 80, 90, 100 rage somewhere with more rage nodes in the Druid passive tree. Since yes, there are more rage nodes here, more fire nodes, that is fire nodes as well, and I think this is going to be new rage nodes too. Yeah, you can actually in a boss fight be up in the sky and stay up in the sky. And as you might notice here, the damage goes up, 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 and up because they reworked how the Flame Breath works. It wasn't written in there before. They said it in an interview. The Flame Breath does stacking, stacking, stacking fire damage. So you hit with a small hit, and then it goes bigger, 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 and bigger. That being a boss fight is just brilliant. Then for our gardeners out there, we finally got an insight on if the human form will actually be good for the end game. And consider that these are all tier 15 maps, so it's working. It's not looking as clunky as we've seen in previous things before. We got a new keystone called Wild Surge Incantation. Storm and plant spells deal more damage and cost less. However, they have way less duration, which makes you have to spam them more and or work with duration supports to extend them. That being said, they're finally dealing quite some nasty damage, and with Volt's Protector that says chance to get a power charge on critical hit, you can maintain those power charges around you at any given time. Quite crazy. On top, we get the support Accelerated Growth 2. You get your plants, they grow, and then you see these explosions going off. Triggers Accelerated Growth on overgrowing plants, and that will blind enemies on a hit. Then you're throwing on those Thrashing Vines on top, and suddenly a tier 15 boss is actually getting slammed. Not as crazy as we've seen now from the fire-breathing Wyvern or from bear form in general, but kind of works. This brings us to the Werewolf and the Wolfpack, and the Wolf has already looked pretty damn nasty in any presentation so far, and it just keeps going crazy. Lord of the Wild says you can equip a non-unique scepter while wielding a talisman. You do have 50% less spirit. Non-minion skills have 50% less reservation efficiency. But you can actually put that scepter on with levels to minion skills, then allies in your presence get bonus damage, and allies in your presence deal increased damage. Together with that Wolfpack Spirit skill that gives you permanent 4 wolves around you, and then whatever buff you have to your companions. Then you'll simply pounce over the map, triggering your mark skills, and repeatedly resummoning more and more wolves. I mean, if we're counting here right now in that gameplay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like I've seen up to 10, I think, or even 11. That's crazy. And with Lunar Soul, then 506% more freeze buildup, you get anything in your way just frozen and then Herald of Ice proccing. By the way, top left corner, we can actually see that the Wolf aura says 8 wolves, plus another 5 wolves summoned from your pounds. Within the new passive skill, Commanding Rage, every rage grants you 1% increased minion attack speed and 1% increased minion damage. But well, interesting, especially if we then take the earlier rage passive that gives us 100% more maximum rage. That's a lot of minion damage. I really wasn't looking to play Wolfpack in any capacity, but they're making it hard to resist. But wait, there's more, because they have a Demon Bear presentation for us, and well, the Demon Bear has been nothing but crazy. Since we know that Druid has that fissure attack, and then your rampaging werebeast on top with the totems and everything, you really are that walking, talking calamity. This works without the demon form, but with the demon form, it's massively amplified. I mean, people have been like, Bear looks kind of slow. Well, that unique definitely makes you go crazy, and having more rage as the bear to then permanently spam out like crazy with your empowered stuns and to keep on with the forward pouncing and ground hitting. Key takeaway from what I've seen, everything looks strong. I was a bit worried about Wyvern, but the endgame potential is certainly there. Werewolf looks the most interesting with the minions, even though I did not want to mess with them. And the human form does finally look like something, and not just like ultimate sadness. Especially that tornado build from the beginning, that looked mighty interesting. Being able to have all these grounds and then completely overwhelm the opponent, cool. I like what I'm super pumped now, even more pumped than before. But wait, there's more, because we got the third Sorcerer's Ascension, and it's quite varied and crazy. The Ascendancy is all about summoning different djinns to help you, and 3 of those. Let's start with a Ruzan the Blazing Sword. Summon Ruzan, an invulnerable flame djinn minion, to do your bidding. Ruzan emerges to strike enemies with his greatsword whenever you use a damaging skill and cast devastating fire spells when commanded to do so. Ruzan deals 10% more damage for each damaging skill you used recently, and attacks with Ruzan's Zealotry when you use a damaging skill with a 4-second cooldown, inflicts enemy struck with exposure. This can then lead into 3 further note, which says Ruzan's Trap. Command Ruzan to hurl his greatsword, spreading hazardous runes on the ground where it lands. If an enemy steps on a rune, it erupts in a fiery tornado that deals spell damage. And or Ruzan's Fury. Command Ruzan to conjure 2 volleys of flaming embers and fire them forward. The embers explode on impact, dealing spell damage. This would deal 60% more damage against immobilized enemies. Lastly, Ruzan's Reckoning. Command Ruzan to teleport to the target location. Upon arrival, the djinn deals spell damage to enemies around him, then slams his blazing sword into the ground, creating a wave of lava that also deals spell damage. The animations for this look quite sick. You get these coins rotating around you. There's the Ruzan summon with the fire projectiles. That was the wave of lava. We got the slamming down sword. So you can pretty much use all the skills, not just have to choose one. Let's get to the next 2. Interestingly enough, you can have all 3 activated at the same time. However, you can't get all their skills activated because you don't have enough passive skill points. The middle one, Navira the Last Mirage, is a more caster minion. Triggers Navira's calming when commanded to use a skill, granting nearby allies 67% increased mana generation. Then we got Navira's Fracturing, deals massive cold damage, chills enemies as though dealing 200% more damage, more freeze buildup, fractures chilled ground within 6 meters. Kinda cool. Leading us to Navira's Well. Buff grants 49% increased energy shield recharge rate. The buff is 6 seconds long. Then we got Navira's Oasis. Converts chilled ground within 8 meters into an oasis that lasts 15 seconds. Oasis grants 50% of damage taken recouped as life and 32% of damage taken recouped as mana. Plus we get blast charges per second. And again, keep in mind we could just activate all of them. Then we got Kilari, the Tainted Sands, which will inflict critical weakness on hits, 50% increased critical strike damage bonus. On top, Kilari's Deception, deal tons of physical damage with an explosion and 50% more damage for each previous time this skill has been used consecutively. You command Kilari to create a blast at the target location that deals spell damage and leave behind a clone that persists for a short duration. The skill can store multiple charges, and using it again while a clone from a previous use is still active causes that clone to explode, dealing even more damage. Brings us over to Kilari's Judgment. Channel and command Kilari to channel alongside you, creating blades that hang over the target location. That's kind of the attack from Balbala. A lot of physical damage, stun buildup, 4 additional critical weakness on hit, more area of effect per stage, more damage with hits for each stage, and 4 stages. Lastly, Kilari's Malediction. Harness Kilari's power to passively consume corpses in your presence, causing corpse beetle minions to burst forth. The beetles passively follow you until commanded. On your command, they rush to the target and explode. Damn, you sorcerer are actually looking massive interesting with very good damage. Love to see it. What do you say, ladies and gentlemen, after this presentation? Druid something for you, or do you need to play that Djinn Summoner? I mean, I definitely know that after I'm completely done with Druid with all 3 animal forms because they see amazing. I need to play a sorcerer with a Djinn. There is no questions asked, right? What are you going to do? Tell me in the comments below, and then watch this video for more build ideas.